Okay, to help you with the last part of that worksheet, the last goal here is being able to determine if a table of values represents a direct variation or an inverse variation, and then after making that determination, figure out what is the constant of variation, what is k, and then what is the equation. Now I think the easiest way to determine whether something is a direct variation or inverse variation will be probably to figure out if it's not an inverse variation. So let's take a look at this example right here. Okay, now remember, when you're looking at an inverse variation, y is equal to k over x. If this is a literal equation and I asked you to solve it for k, you would tell me that in order to get k by itself, you would multiply both sides by x. So you'd say x times y is equal to k. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually figure out the k for each of these pairs, these ordered pairs. And if when I multiply them together, the x times the y, I get the same value, which is the k, then I know that this is an inverse variation, okay? So negative 4 times negative 2 is a positive 8. 8 times 1 is 8. 16 times 1/2 is 8, okay? Keep in mind, every single one of these has a product of 8, which means that is my k. The k is equal to 8. Now, if you get a problem where one of these does not equal 8, so say for instance you had 2 and negative 4, this gives you a negative 8. If this was on the list, this would be neither a direct variation or an inverse variation, okay? So if the constant variation is k is 8, then the equation is y is equal to 8 over x. Okay? Alright, now let's take a peek at the direct variation. Okay, in this example, I could easily see that if I were to multiply each of these together, I wouldn't get the same value. This would give me negative 12, this would give me negative 27, and this would give me negative 4/3. So I know right away this cannot be inverse variation. Okay? So let's start figuring out what it can be. Could it be a direct variation? So in order to do that, go back to the equation of a direct variation, which is y is equal to k times x. If you want to figure out what the k is, divide both sides by x, and you get y divided by x is equal to k. Okay? So let's take a look at this first example. I'm going to take the negative 6 divided by 2. That gives me negative 3, which means the k for the first one is negative 3. If the k for the following two is also negative 3, then I know this is a direct variation. Let's take a look at the second one. Okay, we have y divided by x, which is 9 divided by negative 3, and that does give me a negative 3. So I have two ordered pairs that have constant variations of negative 3. Last one, negative 2 divided by 2/3. Okay, and remember from middle school, in order to divide, you would say negative 2. You would read it as negative 2 divided by 2/3. But the way you do it is you're going to say negative 2. You're going to change the division to multiplication, and then change 2/3 to its reciprocal, and then multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator, which will give me a new numerator of negative 2 times 3, which is negative 6, over 1 times 2, 2, which also gives me a negative 3. Okay? So I see that all three of these have a k of negative 3. Which means my equation is y is equal to negative 3x. Okay, hopefully you've got a good idea of how to tell the difference between the two. Now let's try one more problem together. Alright, so like I said, first thing, just go ahead and multiply them together. See if it's an inverse. 12 times 3 is 36. 2/5 times 1/10 is going to give me 2 over 50. I already know these two are not equal, so it cannot be an inverse variation. So let's figure out if it's a direct. So remember, y is equal to kx, okay? or we said y divided by x is equal to k. So let's start with these. So 3 is equal to, 3 divided by 12 is equal to what? Well, that reduces to 1/4. So this one, the k is 1/4. Let's try the second one. I have 1/10 divided by 2/5, which would be the same as saying times 5/2 would give me 5/20, which reduces to, once again, 1/4. And last one, let's look at these. We have 3/4 times 1/3, and that gives me 3/12, which reduces to 1/4. So this is a direct variation. In this case, the k is 1/4, so my equation is y is equal to 1/4 times x. Okay, hopefully you got a good idea now of how to be able to tell if tables of values represent inverse variations or direct variations, how to find the constant variation, how to write the equation. Just remember, to be successful in this unit, you just got to remember a couple things. Remember that when you're graphically a direct variation, it has to go through the origin. Also remember its equation, y is equal to kx, okay? And remember, inverse variation does not go through the origin. And its equation is y is equal to k/x. One more thing. Try to memorize this little phrase. Y varies directly or inversely. I think I've spelled this word wrong. There we go. As x. Okay? And that'll be helpful in the next section.